Hello. This is What's the Situation, and I have an idea. I have an idea about for not about but for AEW. Now, what could this idea possibly be? Well, I wanted to I in a previous video, I created a concept, a possible storyline for Chris Statlander, right? And so I wanted to do that with more wrestlers. And so what I did at first was I started looking toward the sort of the roster, a thick roster that it is, because I don't know who half of these people are, but I had an idea for a story because, as I said in the previous video, I write stories. I'm a writer. I come from writing like legitimate stories. I write superhero stuff. I write fiction, nonfiction, romance, action, stuff like that. So, from a writer's perspective, I had an idea of a faction. Now, when I say AEW and faction, it makes me want to roll my eyes because there's like 30 of them. As I'm scrolling through this, there's like everybody's in a faction. And this is absolutely ridiculous. Like everybody's in a faction, everybody has a tag team or something, even though the tag team division is not very good right now. But yeah, I mean, so I had an idea, right? Instead of the Continental Classic and not having it make sense, and just having the matches to for the sake of having matches, because let's be real, if you're a smart wrestling fan, you knew. I don't know if everybody knew, but I could tell Eddie Kingston was going to win. Like, not even me knowing that he likes Japanese wrestling and he just wanted to do the Triple Crown thing, I knew he was going to win, right? It was pretty predictable. And predictability in wrestling is fine except when you waste TV time for it. You waste my time for it. Like, I already knew where it was going. So, um so we have this story, right? We take the Continental Classic, we nix it, nip it in the bud, get rid of the Continental title, get rid of the International title. We don't need them. It's like if I was going to, if like for WWE fans, if I was going to explain the importance of each title in terms of WWE titles, like WWE titles, WWF, 90s WWF titles, whatever. The international title to me is like the light heavyweight title in terms of importance. Like, except like for a moment, Dean Malenko made it important in the cruiserweight division, or in the light heavyweight division, whatever. But it was never an important title. The international title, however, is just get rid of it. Like, okay, so I'm looking at it here, right? I'm on their website. They have the international title, the TNT title, and the the continental title. What do we need all these titles for? It's not like they have two separate shows. It's not like they're gonna make another world title. They don't. They don't need three preliminary titles. Okay. Um, they need one. Like the AEW title and the TNT title are fine. You don't need these other ones. Like it's so low level that Will won the title, and the next showing, he is in a world title match because it's like the win didn't even matter, which was so ridiculous. But yeah, let's get rid of the continental title and the international title. Nobody needs them. Who cares? It's not like it's giving anyone else any opportunities. The only people who are in that realm are like the same 5 or 6 people, you know, who are fighting for it. And Orange Cassidy, um, but yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. So I don't really care about that title. You can get rid of that. I don't know why I'm stuck on the international title. I'm talking about the continental stuff. I'm so mad about. I'm so mad it exists. Like it's kind of sad. But I mean, you know what? Let me get into that for a second before I get to the continental stuff. I feel like if you were going to have 3 shows, an A show, a B show that nobody really watches, well, I'm sure the fans watch it. I don't. I don't really care what happens on Collision. Like I'll hear about it and I'll be like, "Oh, that happened on Collision. I didn't even know it was on." So they need they need a title there that's on important. What I think they should do with the other titles, right? Because I was doing this, as I said, I'm a writer. I write wrestling. I have 2 shows that I'm writing, right? And I have, so on the main show, there's the world title, women's title, tag team titles, and the secondary continental title, right? Those are important on that show. So the people who are in those divisions are on that show as well. And sometimes there's a crossover, sometimes there's an overlap. But on the other show, the US title is basically that show's world title. It's treated as a world title on that show. And yeah, it's treated as an important title on that show. And there's a cruiserweight title, which is the secondary title essentially. There's the women's tag team titles, and there's, as I'm writing it, I'm creating a women's TV title, so that would be on that show, right? So that's what they should do. Like if they're not gonna make the TNT title important on Dynamite, they should put it on Collision. And but that was just my idea for that. But going back to the continental stuff, the Continental Classic can be changed. We need to get rid of the Continental title, and what we do is we create, and I'm pulling from my ideas, we create a briefcase. Now I'm sure the WWE marks are gonna be like, oh, AEW is copying WWE. No, nobody has. I please, like, somebody give me an idea. They have some original ideas. WWE has had some original ideas, I guess. But this isn't the only company that will have had copied this concept. So I don't know if WWE copied this concept from anyone else, but they have a briefcase and they use the Red Robin tournament and they make it make sense and less predictable in terms of the booking. So what I would have for that is maybe anybody, they do the 3-point, 2-point, 1-point system. Or is it like it was 3 and 1? I don't recall, but the Continental Classic, it was like, hold on, let me see, because they have it on the website. It won't. Okay. I'll figure this out later because it won't let me see it. But yeah. So if they have a 3, like the 3-point system where you win a match, you get 3 points. You lose a match, you don't get any, or it comes to a tie, there's 1 point, right? So after a certain amount of weeks, because everybody's fighting each other on 2 shows, you don't, because I don't recall, I think they did the matches sporadically, but they did it Yeah, they did the matches sporadically on one show and then the other. I think it was on Rampage. I hope it wasn't on Rampage because I hope it was on Collision. I think, but regardless, you after a certain amount of weeks, if one person hasn't won enough matches, they're cut, and then we continue with the other people. Right? Maybe if they lose a couple if somebody loses a couple matches in a row from the beginning, they're cut from the Red Robin tournament. Right? You try to make it like smaller, make a little more sense. Just cut them. Or if you're not gonna do that, do a regular tournament. I'm what I'm doing with mine is I'm using that concept where if they haven't won a certain amount of matches in the row, they're out of the tournament. Um, unless they can win their next match. So, like, I have a character on the women's side who has who has lost 3 matches in a row, but she wins the fourth. So she's able to go on, but there's somebody who has lost all 3 matches and she can't win her fourth, so she's cut out. And so we continue from there, right? And yeah, I think that's how we should go with this. Also, when we continue from that, as I mentioned, women, they should also have one, and it should be a tournament for the briefcase because Tony loves tournaments, and I know you see this. It's so hard to make suggestions because everything that I say that I want them to do, they've dug into the ground, right? A tournament, a nice Red Robin tournament idea, they dug it into the ground. A good booking, a possibly good booking decision that I've thought of, they've dug that wrestler into the ground. It's so unfortunate, but yeah. So we go from that tournament. It's a slow process, or maybe rather than like somebody losing 3 matches in a row, they do 2, they lose a third one, they're out, something like that. You have to have eliminations in a tournament. That's what the point of a tournament is. So that's what we do, right? And finally, they get the wrestling briefcase, and it's for the world title. Now, the story that I wanted to come up with, I wanted to look through this roster because this is a ridiculous roster. It's so long. Like, I tried to read it on my phone and I could not, and it took me like, it's different because I'm on my computer now, but when I was trying to read it on my phone, it took me about 5 minutes to get through the whole thing. And it's a little different because it's grouped up now, but the people I would use for this storyline, I can't even find here really. um you know what I would do, what I want, because it really can't be anybody here. All of their reputations are, for me, are kind of ruined. um but what I would have now, this requires, somebody, a younger wrestler with some technical ability. The only young wrestler on this roster with technical ability I could really see is Hook, but he doesn't fit for me. So I'm just gonna make this up. Like, I'm just gonna make it up, and I'm gonna add an established tag team that would work. So let's say we have a wrestler. It doesn't even have to be on somebody on the current roster. It can be somebody that would come in later on in AEW's tenure, right? More on that later. But somebody young. And this would work with the heel EVPs thing. Oh, well, no, I wouldn't say Jack Perry. He doesn't fit the bill either. Um, I don't even like Jack Perry, so I really wouldn't want to, but uh, we'd have possibly this young wrestler who's a heel already. We keep him a heel, and he's in a group. Um, he's in a group, and he's in one of these factions, and now this is like, well, maybe we do an injury angle, or because like when I was writing this concept, like in terms of the writing, this person is legitimately injured, but maybe they do get injured, maybe or you just put him in the tournament itself, and you put him in the tournament, and he goes on and he wins it. So the idea I had for the tournament was you get up to the point with enough eliminations by the last point you have two people. You have those two people go to whichever pay-per-view it ends on, and they fight to fight the next person from each block. And they go on, and whoever wins the title, or not the title, but the case. And also, I one thing I did note, I noted, one thing that I wrote as well, is that it could also be for a title, like the thing, just not the Continental title. It could be like for a vacant TNT title, or a vacant TBS or women's title, or AEW title, whatever the freak. So that's something I also noted. But yeah. So he makes it to the finals, the semifinals. He wins the semifinals. He makes it to the finals. He wins the finals. Boom. Ooh, wait a minute. I'm thinking Kyle Fletcher. I like Kyle Fletcher. Let's go with Kyle Fletcher. Okay, so it's Kyle Fletcher, right? He wins the briefcase. And so he wins the briefcase, and he gets a insured world title match. If he can cash it in whenever, wherever. So we have the world champion, whomever it may be, who I would hope it is. No shade to Swerve, but he's been quite disappointing, and it's not even his fault. It's just how it is. But I can't imagine anyone else. Well, probably Will. Maybe Will at some point. He's going to be the world champion. But maybe we have Will as the world champion. He's the babyface, right? And we have an authority figure, not the Bucks, because they're not convincing to me, but somebody as the heel, right? If you're going to do a heel authority figure thing, have somebody slightly believable. So I don't know who that would be, but it would be somebody believable. And from there, that person is essentially trying to eclipse Will Ospreay. He's trying to get rid of Will Ospreay as the world champion. He brings in a killer, somebody who is, who has some history with Will, and I would want that to be Takeshita if he was booked correctly. This is like, okay, so this is in a world where Ring of Honor is not there. So Fletcher is not the world TV champion. And Ring of Honor is a separate thing. And then Takeshita is being booked well, and Will is not a babyface in a heel stable. And so this is also in a world where after Takeshita and Kyle and Hobbs had their matches with Will, they turned on him because that's what should have happened. And so that's what happens, right? And now Will is a babyface. He's the world champion. And we get we get him as a world champion. We get Will versus Takeshita. Takeshita wins the world title after, whoever the authority figure is screws Will over. And it's not, but it's he wins it in a way that it doesn't seem like, oh, he couldn't have done it without him. He just wins it surely, if that makes any sense. And so, as we have that going on, Kyle is rising up the card a little bit. He's getting wins that matter, and he's not stuck on Ring of Honor, and he's winning matches. Yes, he's winning matches, not losing and then coming up to have a big match and then losing again. No, no, no. He's winning matches. So, you know, we get to a point where Will is, he's fighting to get his championship back. He wins a number one contenders match, no gauntlet, because I'm tired of gauntlets as well. And eventually, he gets his chance. He gets his chance at Takeshita. And maybe this is after maybe one or two rematches. Will loses that rematch. He gets the number one contendership match. He goes on to the championship match and he wins. He wins back the title. But in comes Kyle Fletcher almost automatically. And he's running down the ramp with the authority figure, right? He's aligned himself with this evil, evil authority figure. And now he cashes in his briefcase. He hits the tombstone, and 1, 2, 3, he's the world champion, right? And so where do we go from here? Well, Kyle's the world champion now. He just won it after immediately taking it from Will. Now, this is in a world where Will is hotter than ever. He is white hot. And he was like medium hot when he came in. But here he would have to be white hot. Like, he would have to be so big, so popular, so beloved by the fans that they could not deny that he should be the champion. And he doesn't, and he wins, and he gets a huge pop, and then he immediately gets attacked, and it makes Kyle the biggest heel in the company. So, as I said, where do we go from here, right? Well, at this point, the cash-in sort of makes Takeshita, because they have their beat, they were in the Don Callis family is what I'm meaning to say. And so they have history. But Takeshita doesn't like Kyle. He doesn't like Kyle for what he did. And for the next few months, both him and Will are staking their claims like, hey, we want our title match because he screwed us both. Well, no. Oh, yeah, no. But, he screwed us both essentially here. And, the authority figure he's not really taking them seriously, but he's like, yeah, whatever. And as the weeks go by, Kyle sort of attacks them after their matches, tries to assert his authority over both, tries to make them, recognize him as the world champion. And come towards the contract signing, because there's going to be a contract signing, of course, because if we build it well enough with a couple of attacks, a couple of good promos, then we could get some heat on it. And towards the contract signing, it seems very clear that Takeshita and Will are going to team up together to beat the crap out of Kyle Fletcher in that match. And because Kyle has I'm gonna say commissioner. Kyle has the commissioner because they have like interim EVPs or whatever with with Christopher Daniels, even though I watched Collision and he like, oh god, I'm not even gonna talk about it, but yeah, so we have a commissioner. Kyle's backed by the machine. Basically, he's backed by the machine, and he's like, if you even think about touching me, you're gonna get fined. And then Takeshita, I want him here to be more of the wild card type character, where you don't know what he's gonna do. And so he attacks Kyle, and yeah, that's how that segment ends. And in the match, coming up to the match, they're essentially, they're trying to work together. Can Takeshita and Will, and you know how it goes. Like when two people are trying to work together in a triple threat match, one hits the other, and then they're immediately upset at one another, and they start fighting each other, and the usually the heel or the babyface in the match tries to take advantage, and that's what Kyle does. He does his best to take advantage of it, and it kind of works. I don't on So towards the end of the match, I have the finish is basically a screw job finish, right? Kyle has Will. You want to have the bigger baby face being screwed here. So you have Kyle put Will in a submission. He's not going to tap out. He looks like he's about to. He's not going to tap. He's going to resist. He's going to pass out, right? Rather than submit. And then, ding, 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 the bell rings out of nowhere, right? There's nobody ringing the bell themselves. And then suddenly, this authority figure comes running down the ramp and gives Kyle the title, and it's going to get heat, right? And yeah, it's going to get a lot of heat, I think. And so from there, we have Kyle ham it up a bit, get him some muscle, right? Because he's a tall guy. He's a tall guy, but get him somewhat a little bigger with a little more muscle to, be there to like protect him from Takeshita and Will when they try to attack him and stuff. And building off of that, I wanted to create a faction. And I know there's a million factions, because I just mentioned about how I wanted to create a faction. There's a million of them. But I have the idea of this faction. I wanted to call it the Renaissance, right? You have Kyle as a leader. He cuts a promo mentioning that this is like a Renaissance era, right? And yeah, so he has a promo mentioning that. And what he does in the weeks coming toward, in the weeks, where he has a couple of challengers, maybe a couple of babyface challengers who want a shot at the title because, they think, oh, you screwed Osprey and Takeshita. We want, maybe they're friends of theirs, or they just want to put him in his place. And, they all come up, they line up and they fall because, he beats them all as time runs on. But he goes and finds an older wrestler, someone who is semi-retired, or somebody who's looking to retire or is close to retiring. And he wants to convince this person to join him, to continue his legacy, because he needs a relationship with a guy as important as this person to give him some legitimacy. It has to be a veteran, right? Of course, I'm thinking about Edge. I'm looking at this. I'm looking through the roster right now, and I kept going to E. I was like, where is Edge? That's not his AEW name. It's Adam Copeland. But we have Adam Copeland healthy, and he doesn't really know Kyle, so he's not very ready to go. After coming out of semi-retirement, or out of, or like reconsidering his possibility of retirement. And so this is in a world where, rather than the House of Black, rather than Adam Copeland, I was going to say Edge again, rather than him trying to be spooky, he tries to root himself in reality for 5 seconds. And maybe at one point he had a feud with the Don Callis family, or not even this is also in a world where Kyle Fletcher was not there. Maybe he's still in his tag team, but also he is that's why, yeah, he is in his tag team, and then he separates because he goes on to win the world title. And so, we keep the Don Callis family: Osprey, Takeshita, Hobbs. And they had a feud with Adam Copeland. Maybe Hobbs was going after the TNT title. And ooh, God, was that my bone? And so they attacked Adam Copeland, and they put him on the shelf, and he's out for a good while, and that's why he's not wrestling as much. So that's why Kyle goes to Adam. And well, I sort of contradicted myself in the sense of Kyle not being in the Don Callis family. I would say he is. Maybe him and his tag team partner, I think his name is Mark. They are in the Don Callis family together as a team. But he leaves. They split from the team, and then Takeshita and Will don't like him afterwards and whatnot. But anyway, he gives this offer to Adam, and Adam, he's like, oh, I'll consider it. He's not really paying it too much attention. But as time goes on, Kyle goes after older baby faces, or not older baby faces in that sense, but he's still in this program with Will and Takeshita, and he outsmarts them essentially because he gets muscle, as I said. Now I'm looking through here, and I'd seen some stuff. I wouldn't want it to be an established big star. Maybe Nick Camarado is huge. He's a big guy. He's exceptionally hairy. I think he could work, right? I think he's either the same height or just a little bit taller than Kyle Fletcher. I'll figure it out. I'll find out. But I think he would work. And you book him as a beast, as somebody who is silent and stands there and takes the brunt of the heel's possible abuse. And but Kyle's not like that. He's not like your average tiny babyface with a heel muscle like MJF or any of that. So yeah, it's them, or I'm looking at Nick Camarado. I'm using him as an example, as an example, because as we get through this story, there's going to be some things that are slightly unrealistic but that's just because it's a concept. So, you know, I'm just using him as an example because I don't I thought he would work, but I also don't think he would work for this specific role. Maybe somebody who looks, because he doesn't. Hmm. He kind of looks like a world champion to me. Slight spoiler, but um, he looks like he has something. Regardless, we get through. He's the muscle, and he's sort of, and the commissioner has somebody he likes. He has well, no, it's not just somebody he likes. He has a team that he likes, and he wants them in on this group because he wants to push Kyle to the moon, but he also wants, like, this heel commissioner is a heels only guy. He doesn't care about the baby faces. He'll screw them over if he has to. It doesn't matter if it's a male or a female. And what I was thinking, right, is FTR. Listen, anybody, I'm not, oh gosh, their body of work is so good that it makes me almost sad that they are who they are. Like, if they weren't who they were, as like Dax Hardwood on the internet, as everybody calls him, FTR Bald, and Cash Wheeler wasn't like having his match in jeopardy because he tried to, he had a gun or something. I don't know. I don't remember what happened with that, but that was ridiculous. Regardless, yeah, if they were who they were, I would be way bigger fans. They're so good. They have it. You know what I mean? Like, they are one of the greatest tag teams. I hate, I don't hate to admit it because I really like their work. I love their stuff in NXT. They were really good. But I would have them in this team, in this group, right? And it's Kyle Fletcher, Camarado, FTR. If there was any other person I would probably put in Camarado's place, it would be Claudio. But that's because I'm biased and I love Claudio and I want him to be on the top of the card. Because actually, you know what? I'm gonna replace Nick with Claudio. I think they're the same size, him and Kyle, but he's like, you have him as the silent type, willing to just step in front of the guy that he's, paid to protect, right? And we go from there. The FTR, they win the tag titles. Claudio goes on to win. Well, no. So I there's one thing I forgot to mention. So as I said, Takeshita and Will have history with Adam Copeland. I got his name right finally. And they have history, right? And as Takeshita and Will are teaming up as this babyface team, Takeshita sort of a tweener, Will straight on babyface. They ask him, hey, you've talked to Kyle. Maybe, you've given him advice and stuff. Maybe you could speak to him about what happened. And, it's just a stupid babyface assumption that somebody's just going to talk to them about something. And Adam agrees. There's a promo. Adam agrees. He's like, yeah, I'll talk to him about it and whatnot. And so eventually, so towards the end of the promo, he and Will are shaking hands, and Will's like, "Thank you," blah blah blah, and he turns to leave, and he and before Takeshita can, Adam automatically spears him, and maybe I would hope it gets a big pop, right? He just turned heel, and Will turns and he's like, "What's going on?" And he's kind of shocked, and then he gets speared, and but like really hard, and then he gets like, he does his flippy thing, his flippy sell. This would mean he'd have to sell, and that's where we. So Adam wants to join the Renaissance team, and that's what he does. And the team comes together. We have, and I know this is a bit of an odd couple team, right? But I feel like it could work, right? You have FTR, right? One of the greatest technical tag teams of the modern era, and their work speaks for themselves. For the work speaks for itself, and we have Kyle Fletcher, this arrogant new young champion, who, at this point, he's going after legends. Now, the legends that I chose for this, um, I see we could do something. Okay, so I have some ideas here. Like we could do a feud with Dustin, right? Promos about Cody, promos about how he's never been able to win a world championship and he never will, yada yada yada. If Jeff's still there, a promo, a thing with Jeff, maybe Kyle, talking about Jeff, talking shit about Jeff, and Moxley, right? I wouldn't call him a legend per se. I mean, he's great. He's fine, but maybe just a feud with him, an established star is what I mean to say. Maybe a feud with Kenny. And at some point in the middle of all this, we run it back with Takeshita and Will, and they have, but maybe they bring somebody back. I don't know. But obviously, and then we're gonna have some feuds with some other guys. Like I would want to feud with Kyle O'Reilly, maybe Darby. I think Darby could work. Um, FTR would have some feuds with some babyface teams. They would be themselves. They're heel because they're better as heels, I'd say. Um, yeah, I think they'd have some feuds maybe with Top Flight or um I was gonna say another team, but that would not be possible. The Acclaimed, perhaps. The I was gonna say the Undisputed Kingdom, the Kingdom of Mike Bennett and Matt Taven, because this is in a world where the Undisputed Kingdom does not exist. That should be every world, but I'm not even gonna mention him. Nope. Oh, that would be great. A match with Roderick Strong. As I said, Undisputed Kingdom does not exist, so I think that would be good. Um, and he's not doing the Adam comic gimmick. Uh, but yeah, I think that could work. And as we continue through, maybe so as we get to the point where we save Kyle versus Dustin for one of his last big title feuds, right? So as we go from there, we get to Darby. Now, Darby's over. He has been for quite a while, but they haven't utilized it correctly. They just let him do whatever he wants to his body. And, it's like Jeff Hardy if he'd gone to TNA first, or like he had, or like he had left WWE right after, right when TNA became a thing, right? You know, not well, I'm not gonna put any blame on TNA. I'm just gonna say if he didn't have any regulation. So Darby's allowed to do what he wants, and he's throwing himself all around. It's not gonna be good for him. I don't. I believe people have said he's like drug free or whatever, which is great. Um, he's not. You know, let's let's keep it a buck. He's not gonna be that for long, because when it starts getting real bad, it's gonna get real bad. And I'm just thinking about it, but regardless, he would be the big baby face here, right? He'd be the baby face that everyone wants to see beat the heel. Beat the big annoying heel that is Kyle Fletcher, because at this point Kyle is a heat magnet. Him even lifting the mic to his mouth would get him boos, right? That's the amount of heat that he needs on him for this to work. Because that happens with a lot of heels, and for Dominic Mysterio, that's like more of an audience participation type thing, because I remember I went to one Raw taping, and well, not a taping but a Raw show, and everybody was booing him, and it was kind of funny because everybody was just booing him. But you know that's the kind of but I want it to be legitimate heat, not fake heat. Not heat because everybody thinks it's funny and everybody wants to yell over him as he's talking, but like legitimate stuff. So I have Kyle being that type of heel. He does these annoying promos. He's Australian, so he has that annoying Australian accent. So it could work. And you have Darby, underdog babyface. Everybody wants him to win. I believe he's definitely smaller than Kyle Fletcher. And they have a great match. And Darby wins. Darby wins that match. He wins there because they've had a few matches in between the whole thing, right? And Darby wins the match. And from there, because at this point, Adam Copeland, because I didn't mention what was happening up to this point where he gets into this match with Darby. At this point, Adam Copeland has become the TNT champion. FTR still they lost and won back the tag titles. And Claudio, that's not, wait a minute. So I spent like 10 minutes in the beginning. I spent 10 minutes in the beginning absolutely despising the continental and international titles. You know what? No, we're not gonna reinstate those. Those are gone. But Adam wins the title and then he drops it, and then Claudio wins the title from whom I am not too sure. Claudio, Eddie would be fine. Eddie would be a good babyface to do that with. So Claudio wins the title from Eddie, because they're already rivals. I'd keep them as such, and we'd have that feud. And so they're like, and the Renaissance, they're aesthetic, essentially. Because the Blackpool Combat Club, every faction has an aesthetic, essentially, or they should. So the Renaissance is Four Horsemen evolution-esque in terms of their aesthetic. You've seen Claudio with the suits, and Kyle Kyle will be wearing the suits, and Cash and Dax would be as well. Now, whether they have a manager, I don't think they would. I think that, but Adam is essentially, he acts as a leader even though Kyle's the world champion. So by the at this point, Claudio's the TNT champion, FTR is the tag team champions, and Kyle's the world champion, and Adam is he's the manager of the group essentially. So when so during this match, he loses the title to Darby, and he's sort of becoming a babyface, and you let it play out for a couple of weeks, but eventually we get to a point where you know it's and because I've noticed that in terms of FTR singles matches, they only put Dax in those matches, so I would have a singles match leading up to a pay-per-view, because this timeline, this is a built timeline. This would take close to over a year, and to build completely to I'm not gonna, but essentially, yeah. So what happens in this? So Kyle versus Dax for the number one contendership to the world title. Now this would come just randomly, but it's like maybe some baby faces are asking, "Hey, can I get into this match?" And the commissioner's like, "No." He just wants his top guys in there. So he gets Dax versus Kyle, and it's gonna go bad because it's a teammates going against one another, and the teammate has been a little looked down. One teammate has been looked down upon because he lost the world title. So the match is good. I'm sure it would be, and Kyle wins. He wins definitively, and this is when Adam comes out, and well, no, Adam doesn't come out. This is why Adam doesn't come out, because Dax and Claudio, Dax, Claudio, and and Cash attack. They attack Kyle, and they beat him down, and Adam runs out, and he runs them off, and it's like because between them, in terms of the story, how it's been built, Kyle and Adam have sort of a father-son type relationship at this point. That's how they're acting, because how I wrote it in my story is like it's literally father and son, but here it would be a figurative father and son relationship. And so for a good while, for a couple of weeks, we tease that maybe they're going to completely break off, that Adam has broken off from the Renaissance faction. He's affirming it. He's like, "I'm on your side, Kyle, blah, blah, blah." And when Kyle and Darby have their rematch at the pay-per-view, and Adam's there as his manager to protect him, quote unquote, and he loses. Kyle loses the rematch. It's a big pay-per-view, so it's a big match. It's a big rematch, and he loses. Darby stands tall, and Kyle, who's now really a babyface, like he's not still in between. He's not transitioning from a heel to a babyface. Like he's legitimately one now at this point. They shake hands, and Darby leaves and whatnot, and Adam is, they're having, they're like, yeah, we're good, and, or, it's okay, you'll get him next time. And then they're about to go through the ropes, and, Kyle's about to go through the ropes, and he's about to go to the back, and Adam gets him and pulls him into the ring and hits him with the Impaler DDT. Boom, he turns on Kyle. I'm shocked. I mean, I don't know if anybody else was shocked, but yeah, that's basically what happens. He turns on him, and the group The group doesn't come out or anything, but, it's a shocking moment because for these past few weeks, he's legitimately been acting like he's on Kyle's side, but he's not. He was the ringleader and he was running the whole thing. He told them to betray him, and that he wanted to do it just to make Kyle feel worse, not because it has to make sense, but because if he just said like he just did it for no reason, that wouldn't make any sense. But him doing it just to make Kyle feel worse for losing the title would, add a little legitimacy to the reason. So from there, um, you know, Adam's the leader. Adam's the leader of the group now, for real. And he goes on to beat Darby for the title at some point, maybe a month or two later. And, this in between time, there's like Darby and Kyle teaming up against FTR. And, at this, Kyle is, he has, he tries to get, he tries to become friends with Will, or he tries to become friends with Will or any of that sort, something like that. Regardless, we continue through the story. They have a little match. They have a couple of matches. By this point, everyone's still champion, and so we get to Claudio. And now for the group, the dynamics I wrote are completely different from what I have, because FTR is a forever team, I think, and they would never break up. So I'm not gonna break them up as a team. It's gonna be a little different. But so we're gonna skip a whole part of this that I wrote. I'm not even gonna explain it because that would require somebody else. So we're gonna just get to the good part. So Claudio, as I mentioned in the beginning, there is a Continental briefcase, right? So Claudio wins said briefcase. Now, at this point, he's lost the title back to Eddie Kingston, and, they've had their feud, but Claudio's ready to get into the world title scene. He's ready to break out there, right? And so Adam is he's the rated R, he's sort of the rated R superstar, but he's older, he's arrogant, he thinks that his word will get through to everyone, and now I want the Continental case would be for any title in AEW, like even a women's title. No, not a women's title, but for any title. So either not the Continental, either the TNT title or the World title. You can choose either or. Or if you're in a tag team and you win it, you could get a tag title shot, right? So that's what Adam wants him to do. Adam wants him to go after Eddie Kingston because they have beef. They have a history. So we get to the point where Eddie is having a match. Eddie has a match and he wins and he retains the title. And him and Claudio, Dax, or no, Cash, and Adam all file out there, and they're running, and Adam's like, go ahead, cash on him, cash in on him, cash in on him. And, Claudio's pausing. He, he's looking at Adam, who has the world title on his shoulder, and he's looking at Kingston, who is like in the corner clutching his, right? And suddenly, Claudio, you can hear Adam, he's like, hit him, hit him, hit him, hit him. And suddenly, Claudio clocks him with the case, and he knocks him out. And Dax is shocked because, well, no, he's okay. So Kingston is not in the corner; he's being held up by Cash, who is doing it because Adam wants Claudio to hit him with the case, but he turns around and hits Adam with the case, and the crowd hope I think the crowd would pop here, and so we get that moment. Cash is shocked. He gets a big boot by Claudio. He gets knocked out of the ring, and Claudio cashes in on Claudio. He cashes in on him, and he gets that pin. 1, 2, 3. We have a new world champion. Boom. That's essentially that's kind of the milk, and the Renaissance is essentially falling apart because it's two of the biggest stars in it are gone. The originals are gone, really. And we get to FTR and Adam. I mean, we have a new world champion. Like, Claudio's the new world champion, and Adam is, he's livid. He wants FTR to do his bidding to beat the crap out of Kyle and Claudio, who are, who come together as a team. And it's kind of, so with FTR, I mean, they're really, the end of the story essentially would just be them having enough of Adam trying to be compulsively controlling, and so they turn on him. They just they just lay him out. I mean, there's nothing really too far gone into that. It's like what I would have is them losing the tag titles to a babyface team, in a match that really elevates them, and after that, Adam is trying to control them, as I said, and they just lay him out, and Adam's all alone, and I don't know if this would elevate everybody, but I think it works in the way that Evolution worked, where they would rise up the card, and then they would be betrayed when they went against the big bad guy, because Randy went against him, Batista went against him. It would work the same way as Evolution. And the thing is, it doesn't matter if it's like copying Evolution or whatever. It worked. It worked then. It works now. It's like with the Mark Henry retirement promo. It worked then, and it worked when AJ did something similar on SmackDown. It works. So, if something works in wrestling, it'll probably work again if it's done correctly. And I think, if they did it, I would listen. I just hope that I get enough views on this channel for Tony to see my stuff and just steal all my things, because he needs a story. He needs something cohesive. And the Bucks and Okada and Jack Perry as their top angle is not working. So, I just want to, because I have some for the women, as I said, with the Chris thing. I have some for the mid card. I have some for the tag team division, because I love wrestling and I want it to thrive. And I have a lot of ideas, a lot of tag team ideas. I do have an idea for another wrestler. I was thinking Jack Perry, but I don't know who would be the team he'd work with. Regardless, I hope you like this concept. This is why I'm called What's the Situation? What's the situation I can create for anything, for any type of wrestling or any type of writing. But I hope you all liked this concept. If you have any ideas or any tweaks, any constructive criticism, please leave it in the comments. Also, like and subscribe, and